people have always been in awe of Mother Earth's most fearsome phenomenon, the volcano. Some of the most majestic peaks of Western America rise along the Cascade Range. Deep within these peaceful-looking mountains rumbles a power capable of devastating cities, of destroying cultivated lands, of causing horrible deaths. This unrecognizable landscape of devastation used to be Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is just one of many Cascade volcanoes. Which of these slumbering giants might awaken next?
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
The towering splendor that was Mount St. Helens. Her green slopes were the home for thousands of forest creatures, the refuge of nature lovers. Thousands hiked her trails. Families camped beneath her trees. Loggers harvested her vast forests. Vacationers came to fish along the banks of Spirit Lake, nestled high on the slope of the mountain. The waters of Spirit Lake feed the Toutle River, which winds down the mountain and through the valley towns below. Towns which had never thought of danger from the volcano that loomed above, until the spring of 1980, when the mountain began to heat from within. Her shroud of ice and snow began to melt. She began to shudder and swell, angrily belching forth steam and rock. Then, on May 18th, it was one of the most powerful volcanic blasts ever recorded. Over 200 square miles were destroyed. The entire wildlife population was buried beneath billions of tons of ash and rock, or burned to death by the incredible heat of the explosion. Acidic ash rained from the sky, smothering the few trees left standing. The icy blue water of Spirit Lake turned to boiling gray mud. It surged over its banks, combining with the enormous volume of glacial melt. This wall of water and mud raced through the bed of the Toutle River, inundating the countryside below, devastating farms, homes, and lifestyles. Mrs. Adrian Johnson was with her family on the Toutle River the night the muds came.
When the mud started to come, which was in the evening around 7:30, it was incredible. You just couldn't believe that it would take everything. It's like my husband said, you know, it will never get that high. We stood on my girlfriend's deck and we watched, and it was like taffy. It would, you know, it would just come like waves. It was terrible. You could hear these horrid sounds. You could say, there goes the neighbor's house. We used to have neighbors here. Now the only time that they come by is to see if they can salvage something. The solitude now, it is just devastation. You get up in the morning and all you see is destruction.
The shipping channel of the Cowlitz River now runs just 6 inches deep in places, clogged with 1.5 million acre-feet of mud and debris. Nearly 500,000 fish died from suffocation and heat. Hundreds of human lives might also have been lost were it not for the planning of people like Cowlitz County Sheriff Les Nelson.
We started our action, of course, with this volcano. Most people relate to it as being of May the 18th. March is when this department had to start thinking about getting into action, and because of the threat and the information that we received, of course, we were concerned about our people.
An evacuation plan was developed. Warning brochures were distributed. The county went into action. Involved in these activities was Under Sheriff William Stewart.
Prior to the eruption on May the 18th, we had set up several roadblocks into the dangerous areas around the mountain, warning people who came to those roadblocks that it was dangerous. Yet they still went in, and we feel that a lot of the ones that are still missing are there because of ignoring our warnings.
Yes, people did die at Mount St. Helens. Many are still missing. Luckily, though, there are no towns dotting her hillside or lying at her base, like those at Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, or Mount Shasta. How many lives might be lost when those mountains erupt? When Mount St. Helens last erupted in 1857, her activity continued for 25 years. This time, how long will her rumbling go on?
We're still on an alert where we're not comfortable. My personal feeling, and that's all that I'm expressing here, however, based on some conversations with the geologists, is that I think the mountain's going to blow again. Maybe not in the magnitude, but I don't think that thing's ready to go back to sleep.
At Centers for Volcanic Study, like the University of Oregon, much knowledge has been gained. Molten material is tested. Rocks are analyzed. Temperatures and measurements are taken. But a real understanding of the volcano still eludes the scientists. Noted volcanologist Dr. Alex McBurney of the University of Oregon.
Basically, a volcano is any vent through the Earth's crust by which molten material is able to rise to the surface and flow out.
There are many different types of volcanic activity, all closely linked, which correspond to distinct types of volcanoes. Shield volcanoes are built up from very fluid magma, which escapes from a tubular vent and pours out in all directions. The shield volcanoes of Hawaii often produce flows of lava which cover everything in their path. Stratovolcanoes include all volcanic cones formed by alternating lava flows and accumulations of fragmentary material, such as Black Butte in Northern California. The type of eruption that occurred on Mount St. Helens is the most deadly. It is known as a Palean explosion.
The activity that started in March at Mount St. Helens was not altogether unusual for that type of volcano. The same is true of Mount Rainier, for example. It's had a number of large eruptions of this kind in the past. You can't predict with any precision whether another eruption like this might happen elsewhere in the Cascades. One of the things that we did learn in this eruption is that it's very dangerous to make any kind of predictions or even generalities on what a volcano might do. You can say that something is not very likely to happen, and then sure enough, that's exactly what does happen, and then everybody ends up calling you a fool.
We find ourselves asking, would there be enough warning time to save homes and lives when other Cascade volcanoes like the sleeping giant Mount Shasta begin to awaken from their deceptive slumber? In 1883, Indonesia's Krakatoa erupted with an explosion considerably larger than this one recorded in 1927. It was heard nearly 3,000 miles away. One of the most devastating volcanoes of all time, Krakatoa claimed the lives of more than 96,000 people. The volcano produced such large quantities of material that parts of the Indian Ocean became impassable. In 1669, Mount Etna took the lives of 20,000 people. Many more have died as she continues to destroy farms and villages. In 1902, the city of St. Pierre was totally destroyed by neighboring Mount Pelée. "30,000 people were killed as the result of a highly heated hurricane-like blast estimated at 12,000 degrees centigrade. An eruption of Mount Vesuvius destroyed the city of Pompeii, striking with such suddenness it mummified her inhabitants. How many more lives will be lost to these rivers of lava as they are released from deep within the bowels of the earth? The tropical paradise of the Hawaiian Islands is in reality the top of the greatest volcanic mountain range in the world. Tourists come to these islands to peer into the very heart of the volcano, taunting its deadly force. The people of these islands have learned to coexist with this continual reminder of Mother Nature's power. Do we know enough about volcanoes here or anywhere else in the world to be really secure, to be able to relax believing we would be warned in time should a volcano erupt with deadly force? Scientists tell us that the Cascade Range of the American Northwest is a time bomb of volcanic activity. These volcanoes may erupt within 200 years or 2 days. Which one will next erupt? The ethereal Mount Hood last erupted in 1801. Will her future activity bring death to hundreds of thousands? Mount Mazama was totally destroyed in her last eruption, leaving only the shimmering crater lake. When will the stillness of her waters be shattered from within? The ice-laden Mount Rainier was last heard from in 1882. If she were to erupt tomorrow, what would happen to the populations of Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia? Mount Shasta, the mystery mountain of California, last erupted 200 years ago. Will she last another year? The area around Mount Shasta is a lush recreational region. Her slopes welcome skiers in the winter. The air here is clean. The fishing is great. The hunting is some of the best. And the risk of death by a volcanic eruption is far greater than at Mount St. Helens. Yet people seem to have balanced this risk with the joys of living here. 12,000 people make their homes in the towns that lie in the shadow of Mount Shasta. When Mount Shasta erupts, scientists predict with certainty that these towns will be devastated. The towns of Weed, Mount Shasta, McLeod, and Dunsmuir. The inhabitants of these towns have come to accept their situation and have developed emergency plans. What if Mount Shasta were the next to erupt? Would its beauty be destroyed, leaving a path of desolation like that of Mount St. Helens? How many lives would be lost? Would the people of the neighboring towns at the very base of Mount Shasta be warned in time to escape? Here, in a simulated evacuation created for our In Search Of cameras, residents and officials of the little town of Mount Shasta demonstrate what might happen when the mountain springs to life. The resort town of Mount Shasta appears peaceful enough, but it lies in the path of potential destruction. How will this picture change if the volcano that looms above it begins to heat up? Advised to begin evacuation, the National Guard will be called in by the governor. Federal agencies will stand by, ready to add their support. Local officials will put their well-rehearsed evacuation plans to work.
Nina, GSA said the mountain's going to go.
Give this to highway control. Attention, all
Okay, I'm on my way.
Attention, all units. Stand by for emergency broadcast. All units begin evacuation procedures.
Evacuate. Evacuate. Evacuate this area immediately.
Citizens realize that these plans are what stand between their personal safety and certain disaster. Equipped with special maps of the region, pinpointing farms and mountain residences, the California Highway Patrol will join forces with local officials in an effort to evacuate surrounding rural and recreational areas. Officials here are equipped to move swiftly into these locations. These vast regions are often filled with campers and hikers, people they fear may be unable to hear the warnings.
This is a hazardous area. Must evacuate. 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 Immediately.
Evacuate. This area is closed.
We've got two more.
The towns of Weed, Mount Shasta, Dunsmuir, and McLeod have long been aware that this could happen at any time. Local leaders are confident that their residents can be evacuated without incident. National Guard members will comb the streets on foot in order to locate any stragglers or children who may have been separated from parents and move them to evacuation centers outside the danger zone. If all goes as planned, the warnings will be heeded. The streets will be deserted within hours. An eerie stillness will hang over the empty town as it waits for the inevitable. No, it hasn't happened yet. Mount Shasta still stands. The eruption you just saw was created by our In Search Of team through the use of a model. Still, some scientists believe that Shasta may be the next of these slumbering giants to awaken. How can we predict when it will happen? The seismograph gives scientists an indication of volcanic activity, but it has not proven to be an accurate tool of prediction. Volcanologists are developing the magnetometer. They feel this instrument's predictive accuracy can be proven. However, will magnetometers be distributed throughout the Cascade Range in time? With all of their machinery and knowledge, scientists were unable to predict Mount St. Helens eruption. Perhaps there is another predictive tool that should be explored, the human mind. With her sensitivity to harmonic tremors, Charlotte King displays an amazing accuracy.
It started out with a severe migraine headache, which I've had since the 18th of March. And ever since that time element, the pain has increased and decreased with the mountain activity. And prior to the 18th, on the Friday before, the pores in the back of my hands opened up and I had bleeding in the capillaries on my hands and my cheeks. I had a severe headache. I was beginning to tilt a little bit to the left of my body. I was having trouble maintaining balance. And when the evening of the 17th arrived, I got up to turn the TV station about 8 o'clock and directly walked right into a wall. At that point, I made a phone call to the TV station and told them it would go within 12 hours. 12 hours and 12 minutes later, the eruption of May 18th occurred.
As we watched, our In Search of cameras captured one of Charlotte's remarkable experiences.
Oh, something must be happening on the mountain right now because the pain is very intense. It's coming in waves. This is the type of pain I've had with the harmonic tremors, and it comes on very suddenly like that and hits very hard.
At that exact moment, 10:56 a.m., June 25th, tremor activity was confirmed by the United States Geological Survey. Will we be forced to rely on Charlotte King to tell us when Mount Shasta or other Cascade volcanoes will erupt? We attempt to understand the phenomenon of the volcano in scientific terms. Yet even in today's world, the Native Americans' understanding of the ways of nature may prove the more accurate. Cowlitz Indian Tribal Chairman Roy Wilson.
Today, as we hear the rumbling of Mount St. Helens, we hear the spirit of the mountain speaking to us of Mother Earth's concern for the life that she sustains. The spirits of our own departed who were buried on the mountain are coming back in spirit retribution against the white men who desecrated our graves, who denuded the mountain with clear-cutting the forests, damming up the rivers, and covering the sacred places. We hear the spirit of the mountain speaking out that unless we change our ways, there will be greater destruction.